Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Inspired Good Fat Life. And I'm really excited today to introduce my guest, Lisa Jendza. And did I get that right, Lisa?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay. But we've known each other for years, and Lisa has a very, very interesting background in IT and health and wellness coaching and food. And so I'm going to let her explain why the two of those make a really good combination, right? So welcome, Lisa. Hello.
Hi, Siri. How are you?
Good, good, good. So I'm so excited to hear you've been doing so many amazing things lately, and I'm so excited to share it with our Good Fat Life community. And so tell us, how did the IT and the health and wellness background, how does that intersect?
Well, it's very common for most health coaches to have had their own health crisis because health coaching wasn't a profession 50 years ago. So I was in IT. I have a 25-year career working for GM, EDS, and Hewlett Packard, where my specialty was root cause analysis. I spent most of my years as a network operations manager, program manager, and then consultant, where I had to identify root cause. And so when I had my own health issues and was sent from specialist to specialist, who all had a different opinion because they're practicing medicine
Right.
and they don't know, plus they've been divided into specialties, I saw something very clearly. When I began my career in IT, back in the days, the older viewers will know about Ross Perot, we were trained on the whole system. Over time, we were compartmentalized into specialties. So you were switches or routers or servers or graphics, and everyone was put into specialties. Well, that's what I saw in the medical profession. So I saw one doctor for the pain in my wrists, which was diagnosed as carpal tunnel, and I was being scheduled for surgery, but another doctor about the pain in my ankles because they felt that my wrists and my ankles were two totally different things. And the pain in my ankles, I was actually told there was no cure. I could just take Advil for the rest of my life. I was 26 years old.
And
So
that's
from
a
the
very
time,
common, but I'm just saying that's, you hear that story over and over and over. Sorry, you're just going to have to get used to the pain for the rest of your
yeah,
life. Yeah.
for the rest
Um,
of your life.
right.
Had I started taking Advil at 26 years old, Sherry, by now I would be in kidney failure because we know that someone cannot take Advil every day for 26 years without causing some permanent damage to their kidneys and probably their liver. So this was coupled with high triglycerides and then type 2 diabetes, and then what I thought was fibromyalgia. And I did not have a single medical professional who could link all of these things together. And then I did have a doctor who said, you need to get rid of everything white. You have chronic inflammation. Well, I already knew I had a problem with carbs and sugar and grains. But it looks like my cat's going to make a
Yeah.
cameo here. He loves to get on. Every time I get on Zoom, he has to get his face on camera. I did have a medical professional who did finally say it was chronic inflammation, and that's when I started putting things together. The chronic inflammation was from eating too many carbohydrates, definitely not enough fats because I was afraid of fats. So I think
Right.
that era, right, we were all on a low fat diet.
Oh yeah, it was eat sugar, eat carbs, anything, or if it was sugar free and fat free, right?
Yes. This led me into a world that didn't quite exist yet 16 years ago, and that was the world of health coaching. And so, I really have a philosophy around. I had bought a wellness spa, so some people know me locally as the spa girl, but I was never into spa services. I was always learning more and more about detoxification and was probably a little ahead of my time with the number of things that I did to learn about detoxification. And I didn't want to go down the nutrition path because I felt that was yet another specialty. And I looked at going back to school and really didn't want the typical schooling. because from what I could tell, the same people who attended that schooling was having the same results as the medical profession. And so I went down an alternative path of learning and then teaching people how to detoxify, because at the root cause of a number of these issues is inflammation, chronic inflammation, or just too much toxicity. So I have come to realize that there's no one size fits all diet,
Right.
but there is a one size fits all recommendation, and that is remove the chemicals. We
So,
need to detoxify, and that's really where my journey began.
okay. So what would you say is the best way to do that?
It is a process. The best I can pare that down to is about a 90-day process. I don't believe in any of those weekend detox kits or even a 10-day or a 20-day or any of these crazy detox programs I see, because in 16 years, I have not figured out how to effectively help anybody change in anything less than 90 days. And a lot of research now has come out that it really does take 100 days to make lasting change in your life. But what we have to do is a process. And the process is we start by removing chemicals, environmental toxins from our environment. We have to take inventory of our personal care products, our household cleaners. There is no sense in starting a detox program if you have not removed the chemicals. So that's the first step.
Good point.
Then we go through a process of elimination. I nor any other coach can tell you what you should or shouldn't be eating. You have to discover what makes your body feel right. Well, we can't do that until we take away the known aggravators, right? So if there's foods that are known to cause inflammation or aggravate our gut, we have to remove those first. Well, that's easier said than done. For someone who's a sugar or carb addict, that's a transition process. And if we try to quit sugar cold turkey, there will be a rebound. So I take people through a process of, okay, we're going to make chocolate chip cookies that are low glycemic index, but you don't have to go completely sugar free overnight because you won't be successful. And I know that from working with more than 4,000 people. I've done this so many times. It cannot be done cold turkey for most people.
So glycemic index, just for our listeners who may not know what that means, can you explain that?
Yes. So glycemic index is the rate in which something affects our blood sugar. And because we're such a carbohydrate heavy society, um, most people are used to their blood sugar going up and down and up and down. And that actually is a drug. It causes a high in the brain. And so if we take away the sugar and we soften those blood sugar spikes, we often don't get the high that we're looking for. And so we will actually eat more. So there's a transition process to get people off of sugar to start softening those spikes to make it more sustainable. Then we can move into the next phase of our detox. When we spread things out, we don't have the detox flu or the keto flu. If only when people want to try to cram it in and do it in a weekend, the American way, right? I'm just going to muscle through it this
Right.
weekend. And anytime I've had someone in my program, I say, please follow my protocol. You will not feel sick at all. We have to work with our body because our body detoxifies itself. You can't make it detox. So here's the things we can do to create an environment so that your
Got it.
body will detox. But we need to do this in a phased approach. So I would never tell someone to do like a heavy metal cleanse and a parasite cleanse and a yeast cleanse and a iodine bromine cleanse like all at the same time. Those need to be spaced out.
So, and you do a lot of work with the gut, right? Um,
Yes.
so talk about that. How does that fit into the detox or to the protocol?
Yeah. So we've really determined that the gut is at the root of everything. right? So we've got a vagus nerve. So the gut brain connection, the vagus nerve, is really what leads to our cognitive ability. And that's another thing that really drove me into this work is as a consultant for Hewlett Packard, I couldn't figure out why people couldn't think anymore. And not a judgment, but an observation of when I went into underperforming accounts to turn them around and I would ask questions, the answers were, well, it's always been done that way, or that's just the way I was told to do it, even if it didn't make any sense whatsoever. And I would ask, well, why would you do this if it doesn't make sense? When I bought my wellness spa, I had those same conversations with people and realized I couldn't even have the higher level discussion with them until we cleaned up. I always came back to diet and cleaning up their gut, doing some amount of detoxification before I could even have higher level conversation with them, because our gut health affects our cognition.
Mm.
And now the research I've done on processed foods and Dr. Joan Iflin's program and reading 2,000 research studies, it is known that processed foods actually capture the brain and put us into the limbic brain, so we lose all access to our executive function. And I really want that to land for people, because I'm sure you have many executive type people in your audience, and the food that they eat can actually limit their executive function.
So that's a big statement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about what are some of the foods. I know there's the common foods, but then maybe some of the not so common foods that can have an impact. So, what would be the top three in each?
Well, I think we're all different. So, and this is where I think some coaches get it wrong, and I call it a maturity or immaturity in coaching. Because in my early days, I would have said, whatever works for me works for everybody. And
Right.
that's not really true, right? So dairy doesn't work for me, but it does for other people. So I would say dairy is known to be inflammatory, but some people can get away with it. Now, I've also done a lot of research on raw versus pasteurized. And had we stuck with raw milk that has all the enzymes in it versus pasteurized, that comes with a whole host of issues. There's a big difference, because I have went back to raw milk, and raw goat's milk for me is fine, but I cannot do pasteurized milk. So it's hard to, which is why a coaching
Right.
program absolutely needs to coach somebody to find the answers for themselves.
Right.
So
And
if it's
I
a true elimination protocol, we will see how that person feels as we cycle through the program. Instead of me saying, well, popcorn is really bad for you, let that person find out for themselves how, which is a funny story, because I had a client who, during the elimination portion, just kept insisting that she just needed to have her skinny pop. It's only 35 calories. I said, I don't care about the calories. This is a detox program. We're going to detox and we're going to rest the digestive system. And she wanted to push back a little. And I said, this is your program. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. You really can't live without your skinny pop for 30 days. And she called me back in month 3 when we're reintroducing foods. And she said, you're not going to believe this. The root of all my issues is the skinny pop. And it was, IBS and lower back pain. But she had to feel that in her body. There's no way I could have
right.
known that, Mary. I
I
can say popcorn would be on my top 3 list of aggravators of our gut health, but someone has to really discover that for themselves.
that you're what you're saying there. I hear that over and over. It's we get this like template, like don't eat this or don't eat that, or this is good for you or not, and and when we go through the protocol that you're talking about, it really is eye opening. It's like, oh my gosh, this is my sabotage. Or when I do this, even though people say don't eat this, I feel amazing. So it can work both ways, and you just never know unless you actually go through the steps to really identify the root.
Yeah.
So,
We have to take away the heavy metals, or at least lower them. We have to take away the environmental chemicals. We need to do a parasite cleanse. We need to cleanse or flush bromine out of our body. And then we can start testing those foods. But again, things done in the wrong order, you're not going to get the outcome that you're looking for. And what the outcome I'm looking for people is clarity, from
mm,
confusion to clarity. And I say, why are we so confused? Because we're bombarded with data and we're looking outside of ourselves. This expert says this, and this expert says that. And now I'm confused. Those experts are not in your body. And a good coach is
right.
going to coach you to tune into your body and help you gain clarity that you'll have for the rest of your life. You never need another expert again when you've gone through a protocol like this. And that was my goal. I use really yogic principles through yoga teacher training. I realized every body is different. And then by teaching all of these classes over the years, it just came together that this was the process that worked well, and people gained their own clarity. And I want them to be empowered. I don't want them to
Right.
look to me. I'm not their guru. I'm just a good coach to help them become empowered.
Well, so
And
that's good at Good Fat Life. I mean, and you know, this is that was the whole reason that we started, was to become a resource for people who are looking for information, because we hear all the time, it's like, I just don't know what to eat. I'm sick and tired, and I don't want to feel this way anymore, but I don't know where to start. But there's that sense that the answer is here. I just don't know. I just don't know what it is or where to start. So that's the whole premise for Good Fat Life, is to provide information for people to help people figure it out for themselves, kind of once
which
for
is
all, or
really
to
what
find the resources.
it keeps propelling me on my journey to give people experiences, because I've been lecturing for 16 years. I'm accredited. I lecture to nurses, social workers. I gave corporate presentations this summer, and they only seem to move the needle so much. But when there's an experience where it's someone's own experience, it tends to make the lasting change, which is really what led to the cooking classes. Because all I heard from people is, I don't know what healthy looks like. I think I'm eating healthy, but I don't know what healthy looks like. And so it forced me to get in the kitchen and create cooking classes. And I got really good with a pop up table and going around town with a plug in skillet and doing cooking classes. And ultimately, that's what led to me teaching kids. This is the only thing that will help kids to take their power back. And it's really the only true form of prevention.
So tell us a little bit about that. What do your kids' programs look like?
Yeah, so when I was first asked to do the kids programs, I said no, because the person before me was teaching chicken nuggets and mac and cheese and pizza. And I said, no, I will not continue to further this limiting palate for kids. This is the problem. Then they end up in my detox program at 40 because they're, addicted to pizza. And so, no, I won't do it. And I ended up putting together a curriculum, and I thought, these kids are not going to like me because this is so healthy. And there's no way that they're going to. I mean, I was very concerned, but I presented it, piloted it with my first group of students. They loved it. The families loved it. They're like, we had no idea. We only signed up because we thought this sounded fun. Now I have families that have come back every single year. They've been with me for 5 years. I have some families who have rotated all of their children through my class so that I get like a different sibling each
Oh, how
year.
fun. Yeah.
um, and it's been growing and growing. So I doubled the number of classes I'm teaching this year in Michigan, and I really invested in new technology this year to make my classes the most professional they can be, as I'm garnering now a nationwide and even somewhat of a global audience with a student or two in Canada.
Oh,
But
there you go. How fun.
Well, yeah, I'm now able to teach kids everywhere because I've searched and there's really no such thing. It's really unfortunate, but there's actually franchises that are set up to teach kids how to bake. And I've had parents provide me handouts that they've gotten from other cooking classes that have box mixes, cake mixes, red food dyes. And, Sherry, I'm very concerned about the next generation. I was just talking about our loss of executive function. So, if we could just think for a minute what that means for this next generation, if we're feeding them, Lunchables just got the contract for all the schools. Most of the schools are doing free breakfast.
Seriously?
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea. Okay.
So what does this mean for it, this is my concern. This was my concern as a consultant, is that we often couldn't see upstream or downstream of what we were doing. And we couldn't comprehend the process, and we couldn't comprehend the ripple effect of the choices that we were making. Yet I look around and I see that in so many areas in life. We're only thinking about maybe our grocery budget this month, or the fact that the school's providing free food. So, yeah, my tax dollars pay for it. My kids should eat it. But we're not thinking that if by 2030, the trajectory we're on is that 1 in 6 kids are on the autistic spectrum, and the number of neurodivergent kids is growing. And the conversation that we're not having is food. and I'm inserting myself now. I'm moving, upstream, because if I stand downstream, I have a bunch of sick people coming to me. I have no shortage of 40-year-olds coming to me with autoimmune issues, type 2 diabetes, thyroid issues, hormone issues, and on and on. But we're not looking upstream. What caused sick 40-year-olds? Well, it starts with what they are eating as in childhood. So if I can go to them, if I can reach the child before they have the autoimmune condition, and I can teach them this is what real food is. And in the process, Sherry, I'm really teaching them to take their power back, because a lot of well meaning adults have made them feel like they're clueless or that they're useless. I'm showing them you can get in the kitchen and cook dinner for your whole family.
For the students, that's fascinating, Lisa. I love what you're doing and the idea, because it makes total sense, right? And kids, I mean, I have grandkids, and my grandkids love being in the kitchen. We have so much fun playing restaurant. And they put their chef
So, what
hats on and their
adults
coats.
consider a
Yeah.
chore, kids
Yeah.
consider creativity.
Yeah. Oh, that's so much fun. And they're open, and yeah. And they're part of the process, right? Yeah. So, well, I love that. So, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
LisaJendza.com is the best place. I have links for everything I do, my detox program, my kids cooking program, and then all the educational events that I run, as well as curriculum development. I'm now doing recipe development and food photography for um, other health coaches, medical professionals, magazines, because there's still a need for what does healthy look like.
So, let's talk about how you see good fat coming into the diet quickly.
Yes, it's far more
Amazing.
satiating. I know there are a number of health benefits to having fat. We focus on fat and protein. If you ask the kids in my classes, what does Miss Lisa say all the time? I say fat, fiber, and protein. Fat, fiber, and protein. Forget the carbs. You'll get enough of them. Trust me, you will get enough of them. We do not need to carb load. We need fat, fiber, and protein. If you're going to play hockey, we need fat, fiber, and protein. And so we talk about that a lot. We'll make sweet potato bowls, for breakfast. Well, they have naturally occurring carbs, and then we add some maple syrup to it. So I'm like, see, we'll get plenty of carbs, but let's count the fat, fiber, and protein that we put in here, and that's what's going to keep you full. So we talk all the time about cognition. Do you want to be able to think, or do you want someone to think for you? They're like, I want to think for myself. And I say, well, do you want your mom to tell you what to wear for the rest of your life? did she pick out your clothes today? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, then why is
Okay.
she picking out your food? I mean, you can participate in this, right? You're old enough to
Right.
tie your shoes. You're old enough to make your own lunch. And so the beginning of the semester is always so much fun because I'm really challenging their paradigms. And by the end of the semester, Sherry, this transformation happens. These kids are prepping their own food. They're helping their parents plan meals. Some of them are cooking dinner for their family. By the end of the semester, we do a semester review and I say, now what happens when someone tries to give you food that you know isn't good for you or something you just don't want to put in your body? And they always say, I'm going to tell them, get that away from me, man.
Oh, that's
And
so empowering, right?
yes, I always say, you're allowed to say no, thank you. That's not for me. No, thank you, not today. And if it's someone you care about, you could even say no, thank you. But I could teach you how to make healthy brownies. And I tell the
That's
parents,
good.
I say, at the beginning of the semester, I had to ask your child to try everything. Now I know that they will. They are. Now I've given them permission to say no, thank you. And I ask that you honor that because I don't think they're going to say no, thank you to something you cook for dinner because they've tried everything this semester. We make tikka masala, they make their own barbecue sauce. Like these kids are amazing what they're able to do in one semester. Now, I hope they stay with me longer. Every semester is different, so they keep building on their knowledge. But in one
Right.
semester, they know how to cook.
Wow. Well, that's so empowering, and I love the work that you're doing. And I was taught to say no, thank you. It's not my favorite food.
Mm,
And so it was, I mean, but it worked, right? It was polite and respectful, and I didn't have to eat it. But I will say it was not always because it was the best food. It was just because it wasn't my favorite food, right? It could be really good for me, and I didn't want to eat it. So.
yeah.
But on that happy note, I just want to do a shout out for one of our sponsors, which is Hands on Health Chiropractic. They have just a phenomenal clinic of chiropractic, massage, functional nutrition, and the environment just makes you feel good going in there. I always feel better when I come out of there than when I walked in, even if I felt pretty good walking in. But they really treat the whole body, as you were getting to earlier. We're a full system, right? So I can't recommend them. They are on my healthcare team, Hands on Health Chiropractic, and I want to thank you so much for being here. Your ideas, you've left me with a couple of things that are ponderables, and I hope that the kids' cooking is an amazing. That's just amazing. And I was trying to think. I don't think I have ever seen kids cooking classes just in passing at all. And so I really want to be able to steer people toward you, steer their
Yeah.
kids toward you, and help you grow that in that however we can.
Well, they are the next generation. We all should have a vested interest in doing what's best for them because in 20 years I'm going to be too old and they'll be running the world. And well-meaning adults, Sherry, keep cutting corners, and where we cut corners is the kids. I'll tell you, the school I teach for just cut my material fee in half this year, and they said just cut back on the food you use or don't buy such expensive stuff. And I said, see, this is why I'm teaching the kids how to cook because well meaning adults keep buying the cheapest thing to give to the kids. And I did it myself. I was in corporate America and I raised my kids on drive throughs and boxes. So this is not a judgment. It is, however, an observation. And now I'm at a point in my life as I approach those years of being a grandma of saying, what do we do to turn this ship around? The trajectory we're on is not sustainable. So I really do implore the audience to think, what does a world look like if the kids have lost access to their executive function?
So on that happy note, yeah, let's go out and teach some kids how to cook. Teach all kids how to cook, right? As we are living our good fat life. And thank you so much, Lisa, for being here and sharing your ideas. Like I said, you've given me lots to think about. And I hope our listeners will be motivated to take some actions as well. So be well. Thank you.